This morning we'll get educated with the March of Dimes. Meet the Director of Program Services. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Redline Power Sports on Highway 501 in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on March of Dimes education. And we're visiting with the State Director of Public Programs, Holly Hayes. Hey, Holly.
Nice to meet you,
Thanks
Greg.
so much for
Thank
coming
you.
in. I'm always thinking of public such and such, but
Well, public affairs program, they're all
public
together.
affairs, that
Right.
ties in. That's perfect. What about this Redline Power Sports?
I think it's wonderful.
This place is amazing.
Yeah, it is. All the power and energy, it's any guy's dream.
Any guys and gals. I heard you were a fan of these
Yeah,
bikes.
I love the motorcycles.
In grad school, you spent a little time on them.
I did.
Uh-huh.
Chris LaRose, we went riding through downtown Columbia a lot.
Chris LaRose, a friend who helped out.
Right.
That's wonderful. It is amazing. 44,000 square feet. And I don't know if you knew it. I think we talked about it before we started filming. Redline Power Sports has been a big donor to the Chef's Auction year after year. And, of course, part of the reason we're here is because Jonathan Formo and the family have been donating to the Heart Ball, which is coming up about a month from now. So we are just highlighting and thanking him for that donation.
And we're very appreciative of everyone who contributes to the March of Dimes. With that money, valuable programs and women and children are reached throughout the state, so we're very appreciative.
Absolutely, Holly. Speaking of that, are you originally from the area?
I'm actually from Easley, South Carolina.
Oh, good. A Palmetto State native.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Proud to be.
And you traveled over, obviously, last night, early this morning from Columbia. You're based there in Columbia, but travel all over the state.
Right. I'm based in Columbia, but my reach is throughout the whole state, and just working with volunteers and organizations to be sure the missions advance.
Last week, you and Kathy Douglas were in town last Wednesday for the Horry County March of Dimes board meeting, which was real exciting. I think you all came in, and Kathy, obviously, having her in town is a treat.
Right.
We don't see her on a regular basis, but to highlight, I think in South Carolina, Horry County had the number 1 and number 2 schools in fundraising,
Right.
which was very exciting, and 5th in the nation. One of the schools in Horry County ended up 5th in the nation.
And I actually went to a conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and they just applauded Horry County's efforts and how far they're moving along. So they're on the map.
Absolutely. It's a big county, a lot of schools, and hopefully getting on the map outside of
Right.
just South Carolina is a
Right.
great thing and great for the March of Dimes.
Yes.
Had you always thought about getting active in the March of Dimes since your youth, or is this something that cropped up during graduate school? Or
Well, when I was young, I've always been interested in women and children. I just think that one of the biggest impacts you can have on families is if you educate the mothers before they ever get pregnant, because the mother's the teacher, the caretaker. So if you impact one woman, you could be impacting generations to come. They'll train their daughter up, and then they'll become a mother, and then you have the grandmothers. So you could have generations of healthy lifestyles. And what drew me to the March of Dimes is they want everyone to have a healthy start. And if we have that healthy start, that person's quality of life's greatly enhanced. They may not have those school problems, with asthma, chronic illness, attention, cognitive skills. So all that's greatly enhanced to help them have a better future, and then hopefully they can give their children a healthy start.
that is a tremendous point. That domino effect, a lot of people probably don't think about.
Right. You can influence generations by just touching one woman or man. I mean, men have babies too, so it's important not to forget the father figure in that picture.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's a great point. And you never know. And, of course, much of what we're focused on now in the March of Dimes recently been focused on prematurity, which I believe we're in the 5th year of the campaign. But, there's so many other aspects of the March of Dimes, but prematurity itself can have such a dramatic impact on not only the mother, not only the child, but so many others, the family and society in general.
Right. I mean, prematurity is a huge issue. In South Carolina alone, 15.5% of all babies are born premature. And what I mean by premature is just that the baby is born 37 weeks of gestation or less. And we would like all babies to be born at 40 weeks. Brain, lung development, things take time. So the longer that baby is in the mama's womb, the more time they have to grow and to mature. So the South Carolina chapter and the March of Dimes in general is very concerned about prematurity. And unfortunately in our state, we have one of the 5th highest rates of premature births in
nationwide?
the nationwide.
No way.
And it's increasing at 25% a year.
Oh, come
so
on.
that is devastating when you think about the families who go to the hospital to deliver and have this belief, I'm going to be able to hold my baby at the end of the day. But when in fact, with some babies who are born really early, that baby may be in an isolette hooked up to all countless machinery and tubes and for even 100 days.
No.
So there's this belief that, one thing's going to happen where things could change. And unfortunately, there are all different severities of premature births, but some don't even survive because they were just born too soon and too small.
15% of the births in South Carolina are occurring earlier than 37 weeks gestation.
Right, 15.5%.
That is
and it's sad. We really need to do something about it to stop this trend.
Do we know why?
Well, we only know half of the reasons why premature births occur, and that's why the March of Dimes has huge efforts, and a lot of the money that goes into from Horry County goes to research, because we're not sure yet if there's some type of genetic link. What are the causal factors causing this to happen. But some of the things are just real simple, drugs and alcohol, smoking. So it's so important, that we're opposed to a mother, if she's a waitress in a bar and exposed to smoke, that can be a risk factor for her delivering early. And just knowing your family history, if you were born premature, or if you delivered premature, you're more at risk to deliver the second time premature.
Is that
so
right?
It's really important we know our family history so we can try to reduce risk factors. And weight, obesity, there are other factors that we can control, but unfortunately we don't know the reasons for all the babies.
Surely a need to continue to strive to raise dollars so the research can continue.
Right.
And obviously, hopefully, the reason will be found out. How did the March of Dimes get started?
The March of Dimes started in 1938 with polio. FDR was, we really need to do something with polio, and so they found the vaccine and eradicated polio.
Yes.
And it is the only nonprofit whose mission was to do something, and they completed the task. So at that time, the March of Dimes was, we could close up shop or we could continue. And they realized, there are a lot of other issues for mothers and babies in our nation that we can work on. And so they expanded their mission to include birth defects, infant mortality, and then in 2003, premature birth.
In 2003, so we're just now entering the 5th year of the prematurity, the push to fight to prematurity.
And the big push with that, Greg, is awareness. A lot of just for individuals in our state to realize that prematurity is a problem. Though you may have the cute little preemie clothes and everything looks so small and nice, for individuals and family members to realize that even though that baby's very small and may be cute, you could put your wedding band and that wedding band could go up an entire leg or arm of a premature baby. And so those children are just as serious and sick as someone, in the whole other spectrum who's a lot older. And so we're really trying to raise awareness and then work on prematurity. And one area, Greg, that is the greatest concern is among the African American community. For some reason, an African American, regardless of education status, social status, is twice as likely to deliver a premature baby than a white woman.
Twice
as likely. And this also goes with infant mortality. They overlap. So there's something in that community we're really trying to work on eliminating the disparity. And that can't happen just by, one person, but working with the Alpha Phi Alpha group, the Zetas, some lead African American fraternities and sororities, and the AME churches, get some faith-based groups together so we can work on identifying risk factors in that community and what messages will hit home to them. What will they see, I really do need to work on this. I don't want this to happen to my child or my grandchild.
Absolutely. How critical. And, of course, to know which are the right venues to reach the most folks is very difficult at times. I think you spoke about getting the word out in 2 weeks. I understand it's 2 weeks from today, Legislative Day
Right.
in Columbia, February 7th, getting close.
Yes, and everyone's invited in 2 weeks, February 7th, which is at 8 o'clock to 10 a.m. We're inviting everyone in South Carolina to come out to Columbia to visit with our legislators. Last year we had 70 there. They're here to hear from their constituents. And
Yes.
we're really supporting an increase in the cigarette tax and for that money to go to Medicaid to help mothers and babies who need health insurance and health care, prenatal care, and also to work on hearing. To be sure, hearing. To be sure that there's follow-up for those children who are identified with the hearing loss. And so we encourage everyone, if they would like to come,
Great,
to
sure.
visit marchadimes.com/South Carolina and sign up. We just
Okay.
need to know at least 3 days in advance so they'll have a nice hearty meal and we'll provide breakfast.
Great. marchadimes.com/South Carolina to RSVP.
Right.
Okay, that's great. A good location, even if folks aren't interested or can't attend or can't leave. Obviously, the bulk of our viewers are in the PD,
Right.
and many in eastern North Carolina, and of course the opportunity even for those folks to support their March of Dimes chapters in North Carolina. But if folks couldn't drive up from Horry County, the opportunity to still visit marchadimes.com/South Carolina.
And for them also to call their legislator and say, you know, I'm not able to make it to the lobby day, but I want you to know that saving babies is important to my family and the Horry County community, and I'd like you to do everything you can to be sure there's health insurance, prenatal care, and hearing follow-up.
Holly, give viewers a sense of what it's like if someone doesn't have a loved one or a parent or a daughter or a sister who has a child in a neonatal intensive care unit. Could you give viewers a sense of what it's like for the families that are going through that, who've experienced premature birth?
Right, and one good example for Myrtle Beach, especially in Horry County, it's a roller coaster ride. You know, you go through, I had this baby, they named the baby, and they have their ups and downs. You know, one day the baby could be doing good, the next day they could have an emergency surgery. There is a lot of anxiety and weight and that guilt. Did I do something to cause this? So it's really a roller coaster ride. And it's hard for others to know because that mother can't even sometimes touch the baby. They have to be, in that isolate. So just bonding with your mother or parent is difficult.
Golly,
So it's a very difficult and traumatic experience.
And the amount of, as you talked about earlier in the interview, the amount of oftentimes equipment or other things that are hooked to a baby's body. How many life-supporting mechanisms are in play?
Just to give you an idea, I mean, on an average day, just for a severe premature baby, it costs $77,000 a day
Oh, come on.
to be in that neonatal intensive care unit. And if you're healthy, 40 weeks, you want your full 40 weeks, it may only cost $1,700 a day. And you think about it, if you're a healthy baby, you're in and out of there. But there's some who are there for, 100 days or more. So the cost on that family, the insurance, their employer, the loss of productivity for that mom. I mean, so there are lots of factors that really interest businesses like this one,
absolutely.
just due to the cost-benefit analysis part.
$77,000
Right.
a day. As you say, 100 days, that'd be $7.5 million.
Right. And these families can't afford it, and they just have to go through means. And as taxpayers, we help or the hospital, gives the cost.
Right.
But one thing I'd really like to emphasize is that prematurity just doesn't happen once that child leaves the hospital or the neonatal intensive care unit. Everything's not hunky-dory, I guess, South Carolina word, but things continue. That child's going to have numerous physician appointments. They may have some cognitive delays. They need to make special classes, their physical and motor skills. So prematurity just it's not in the hospital, but it's a lifetime of struggles and accomplishments.
And as you say, it's not just the cost for the family.
Right.
There really is a cost for the workplace and for society in general.
Right.
A dramatic potential cost there when you think about the cognitive delays and otherwise. Even whether it's a minor birth defect that occurs or just the instance, which I was about to say the rare instance of prematurity, it really isn't. If it's 15.5% of all births, so out of 100 women, 15 plus women would have a premature baby. Now, oftentimes there are not all babies born prematurely necessarily have the depth of even another baby born. If one's born at 36 weeks versus one at 23 weeks, there's going to be a dramatic difference.
Right, but even if you're, yes, I mean, there could be cerebral palsy, blindness, chronic respiratory problems, but even if you're born, 38 weeks, there could still be some lung development issues or things. Right, the severity. And just a good statistic, I know a lot of people throw statistics out, but one that I really think about often is in an average week in South Carolina, in our state, which we're so proud of, 168 babies are born every week premature.
No way.
Every week. So this is something, and sometimes we think of those statistics and like, 168. But if you add that up every year, and on the front page of the newspaper, if it said, 8,000 or whatever, 8,000 babies were born too small and too soon in our state, people would think about it. But we need to think about the duplicative effect of what's happening in our state.
168 babies born each week.
Right. And everybody can take part, but one thing everyone who's watching this morning can do is just to think about their own lives and what they can do. If you're thinking about getting pregnant or you're pregnant now, I encourage you to go to the nurse or doctor and just ask some questions. As we said before, if you were born premature or your mother had delivered you premature, that's a risk. So know your family history. If you're smoking or doing drugs right now, it's important to discuss that with your doctor. If you have chronic illness, your weight gain, are you obese? Are there things you can do? So I encourage you to go to your doctor to find out, what are some risk factors I have and what can I do now to take those steps to reduce those for my baby.
Holly, do y'all have information on your website?
Yes.
That women could take advantage of, or parents, or even loved ones, husbands, as you say, or boyfriends?
On the marchadimes.com website, just the plain website, if you click on the Pregnancy and Education Center, there's lots and lots of information, fact sheets, what to do for every month you're pregnant, and there's great information for the dad, the mom, and even the siblings.
And I think the website also talks, if you went to marchadimes.com/South Carolina, you'd see some of the tremendous grants that are being made in South Carolina. And if not there, you can surely learn about it online, the opportunities.
Right.
How often are grants done, and how do folks go about learning more?
Well, grants are given on an annual basis, Greg, and our chapter, South Carolina, gives $637,922 back to the community.
Right.
So when you fundraise for Walk America, know that 95 cents of every dollar goes straight back on the streets to mothers and babies.
95 cents? Come on, that's a tremendous number.
There's a lot to do. We need it, Greg.
Golly, are you volunteering? My God,
No.
that's
Right.
Yeah.
So, everyone can apply. We encourage churches, nonprofits, big businesses, health departments. If you have an initiative that's going to decrease premature birth and infant mortality, whether that's group prenatal care, a smoking cessation class, a class for Hispanic women, whatever it is, we would consider that in our application process. And again, that's at marchadimes.com/South Carolina.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Hispanic women. Folks could go online to Nassersano, I believe, .com to learn more also, if they weren't English speaking, to learn more about some of the risks that folks are faced with and some of the things they could do to change their lives. What about the criteria for applying for those grants? Is that pretty difficult, Holly?
It is actually not. I would say, August, if you are interested, there's a letter of intent stage where you basically just say, this is my organization and this is what I would like to do. And we have a group of volunteers who come in and say, does this really fit with the mission of the March of Dimes? Of course, we know that helmet safety on motorcycles is important, but that's not our mission. We're really focused on our mission. So anything dealing with mothers and babies and how we can improve those pregnancy outcomes have a wonderful chance of being funded. And this year we're funding over 41 organizations.
Is that
so
right?
I encourage everyone, especially in Horry County, to apply and see what they can do to make their mark against this horrible crisis.
We've just got a few minutes, Holly, and I want to talk a little about 2 weeks from today, again, Lobby Day. Some of the prime focus for that day, what are some of the messages you're trying to get? And then if we can talk for a minute after that about some of the real successes in '06 and since you joined the organization. But how about some of the big plans for 2 weeks from today, Lobby Day up
Okay.
there in Columbia?
Well, we realize that with the grants and everything, if we just work with the women one-on-one, we can't make a huge difference. That the advocacy and legislative and system changes are critical, as long with the research, for us to advance our mission. And at Lobby Day, we're going to be urging the legislators to vote on the increase for the cigarette tax to go towards Medicaid to help women and children's coverage, and we're also urging for a statewide smoking ordinance. As I said before, smoke exposure is a proven risk factor for premature labor, for a woman to deliver too early. And so we're urging legislators to vote, instead of every city going out with their own smoking ordinance, Bluffton, Greenville, Columbia, for there to be a statewide workplace smoking ordinance for all restaurants and bars.
Golly. So there's two key things that day, two
Right.
big ones that you're really
Right.
pushing. The 100% statewide ordinance for a smoke-free environment, or smoke-free setup there, but also the 93-cent increase in the tax on cigarettes.
Right. In addition to that, we would like hearing follow-up. If a child right now is screened, all newborns have their newborn screening. They have the little blood prick on the heel to see, if there are any amino acid disorders right now. But if a child right now is screened, they look like they have a hearing loss, Greg.
Right.
44% of those children are never followed up.
No.
And so sometimes we don't even see that till testing time comes in schools.
Right.
Children hate that, and they're like, well, something's not right. And
Yeah.
it could just be a minor hearing loss. It could be a serious, they have loss in both ears. So we want to be sure that measures are taken so every child has a right to a healthy start, and so they get screening with the audiologist or whatever's needed to be sure they can go to school and function.
And are you all doing this in tandem with any other organization? I know the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind calls on Columbia a good bit, and I'm sure
Right.
they'd be very interested in
Yes.
making sure folks follow up well.
We're working closely with the Department of Health and Control, DHAC, and the School on Deaf and Blind. And then we're also working with the South Carolina Tobacco Collaborative on the smoking issues.
Good. I'm sure that's a sticky subject at times, particularly for Horry County tobacco farmers, and many of our PD viewers are farmers. That's a difficult issue, albeit it's not shooting the figure well beyond the norm. It is actually bringing South Carolina up to the national average.
Right. We actually have the lowest cigarette tax right now in the nation.
Is that right?
And that's just an atrocity.
Well.
And research shows that, states that have increased the cigarette tax and done the smoking ordinance, the restaurants and bars, they make it and they survive. And it's just for the health and well-being of the South Carolina families.
Right. Some of the big successes in '06 or since you've joined
Right.
the March of Dimes Foundation.
Yeah, 2006 was a great advocacy year. Our main win was to ensure $850,000 in the Department of Health and Control. They have a budget item now for the Birth Defects Project.
Great.
And what that means is that now there's going to be a database with abstractors going about to keep in touch with who has a birth defect, to try to see if there are any similarities or what we can do to still work on birth defects. And also we added tyrosinemia type 1, and I know that's a
That's a
scary
fancy word,
name,
yeah.
but basically it's just an amino acid disorder, and all newborns are now going to be screened for that when they're in the hospital. And for a lot of that's a low percentage of babies who actually have it, but if it's your child, you're interested in it. So even if it's that one child who screens positive, we're making a big difference for that family and society.
Obviously, in this position as State Director of Programs, as you say, it's difficult when you break down that 168 a week, trying to make sure that really makes an impact
Right.
to the normal citizenry, that 168 premature births weekly. How do you go about? We've got less than a minute. Is there anything you really want to drive home, Holly, to make sure that folks understand the significance of that level of premature birth?
Right. To drive home, I would just say I would urge everyone to examine their risk factors, to know their family history, and to see what you can do, and not to get overwhelmed, but do one step at a time. And then share this information with your family members for that domino effect. And support the March of Dimes and the local chapter in Horry County, wherever you are, because you know that money's making a difference in babies' lives right here.
Absolutely. Great words.
Yeah,
Holly,
thank
thanks so much for
you.
being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Holly Hayes coming up next. community service, public affairs, research, education. The list goes on and on. That's why she's the state director of programs. It's a critical role. Holly Hayes is traveling all over the state to remind folks prematurity is something that you've got to think about every day. You have to think about it, or it's not going to sink in. You're not going to show up at walks and continue to raise money. You're not going to show up next Tuesday at the Hard Rock Cafe at 4 o'clock for the kickoff to Horry County Walk America. You're not going to show up at Lobby Day on February 7th if you don't recognize those numbers are real. 168 births every week, premature. Women are impacted, children are impacted, families are impacted. Give them a call, 803-252-5200, 803-252-5200, or marchadimes.com/South Carolina. Get involved, make a difference.